Okay, good afternoon, everybody. This is Sheila Boynton with the Million Women Mentors, and we are very excited today to be talking to everyone here in Connecticut, and we do have a few guests online as well from a couple of other states that wanted to learn about the Million Women Mentors movement, and we told them this would be a great way to learn and hear a little bit about Connecticut and what you guys are doing. So we are absolutely thrilled today to have the Lieutenant Governor, Susan Bykowicz, on the phone with us today, and her fabulous team with Cherie and our state chair, Laura Williams, as well. And if we go to the next slide, and this is how we will transfer the slide. So when you guys are on, please say next for us. Our agenda this afternoon is to give you an introduction to Million Women Mentors, our national movement from a 30,000-foot level, and then talk a little bit about the vision for MWM in Connecticut and hear from the Lieutenant Governor on the reason that she is now our honorary chair for the state, as well as then hear a little bit about some of the Million Mentors efforts in some of the other states, so you guys can learn a little bit about the activities that have gone on for the last several years. And then we will end the webinar today with some opportunities for engagement for those of you that are on the phone today and on this webinar with us for Million Mentors in Connecticut, and a little bit more about the next steps. My name is Sheila Boynton. I serve as the National States Chair for Million Women Mentors, and last year we celebrated our 5th year. I have been honored to get to work on this movement since it began, and I'm also the CEO of an educational technology company that offers Learning Blade, a STEM tool out across the states. So I'm really excited today to let you see a little bit about, a little bit about what we're going to be doing in Connecticut. And as I mentioned earlier, we are very honored to have the Lieutenant Governor serve as our honorary chair for Million Women Mentors. I'll talk a little bit more about the honorary chair piece a little bit later, but I want to give definitely a shout out to Governor Kim Reynolds, who was our first honorary chair of Iowa when she served as the Lieutenant Governor, and started a very great path of fantastic lieutenant governors and governors who now chair their state work, and I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. I also want to really thank Cherie Phoenix-Sharp for her tremendous leadership in working with the Lieutenant Governor to help Million Women Mentors in Connecticut get kicked off. You're going to hear from her a little bit later. She's very modest, but she is truly a leader for Connecticut as well. And I know the Lieutenant Governor is thrilled to have her on her team as well. And lastly, you will also hear from Laura Williams, who serves as the Million Mentors of Connecticut State Chair. And you'll hear from her and hear a little bit about why these people are all involved. So that's a little bit about what we will be doing today. But let's just start off talking about why the status of women in STEM. Of course, some of this is not going to be tremendously surprising or something that you don't know about. But women, we are 50% of the workforce. Yet we are only 24% of the STEM workforce. And what was most alarming to us 5 years ago when we started this movement was that the data showed us that not only were we 24% of the STEM workforce, but when women go into STEM, 50% of them drop out of their field in the first 10 years. So this isn't only about getting more girls into STEM, this is also about keeping women who are currently in STEM careers in that space. Our partners, My College Options, that looks at the trajectory of women and girls' interest in STEM at graduation, showed that the number of girls' interest in STEM was actually declining the last few years. So all of this to say that, you know, this is very important as a national priority. Of course, it's not just about equity, it's also about economics. When we look at economically across the country, we see that obviously STEM jobs pay quite a bit better, a 26 premium if we look at bachelor's degrees. But even if we look at regular pay, 77 cents to $1 is what women make to most careers for men. But in STEM careers, we make 92 to 96 cents to $1. Should be $1 to $1, but it is really an economic equation. Additionally, if we look at women pursuing STEM as college majors, we also see a tremendous differential between men and boys who say they're interested in pursuing STEM at 44%, while girls or women are only at 15%, and only 1 in 9 women say they plan to pursue a STEM career. So I think this gives you enough of data to actually say, yes, this continues to be an issue. And I think, a lot of states and a lot of different entities across the country really feel this is something they want to support. I think in Connecticut, you are very lucky to have leadership, including your governor and your lieutenant governor, who understand the value of this, and to its end have put together a governor's council on women and girls. And what's tremendously interesting and exciting for us at MWM Mentors is see the leadership of this being led by your lieutenant governor. And so at this point, I wanted to turn it over to her to allow her to actually have an opportunity to say a few words and talk about why this is important and why STEM and STEAM are a priority for the Council on Women and Girls in Connecticut. Lieutenant Governor.
Sheila, thank you so much for your leadership in this important area and for your vision. And thank you to everyone joining us today. Most of you probably, if you live in Connecticut, I hope you probably already know how passionate I am about advancing the interests of women and girls. When Governor Lamont and I teamed up to run for office, we always said that women's issues are economic issues. And we knew that we had to focus on empowering women, not just because fighting for equal rights was the right thing to do and is the right thing to do, but also when we empower women, we uplift families, businesses, communities, and our whole state. And the quote that you see from Governor Lamont really captures one of the driving forces behind the formation of the state's Council on Women and Girls, which, as you might know, was one of the very first orders of business that was done when we were sworn into office a year ago in January. So it's been almost a year since we first announced the council, and we have had a very exciting year. So could we have the next slide, please? So as chair of the Council on Women and Girls, I oversee all of its subcommittees, and there are 4. First, economic opportunity and workforce equity. 2, education and STEAM. 3, health and safety. And 4, leadership. And our education and STEAM subcommittee is particularly relevant to the goals and objectives of the Million Women Mentors initiative. And when I first talked with Sheila Boynton, I knew that being Connecticut's honorary chair would be a great fit. And Sheila, I will tell you that my colleagues who are lieutenant governors, who are women lieutenant governors across the country who are participating in this effort are very, very excited about the progress they are making in their state as a result of this program. I know Cherie and Laura have been at Education and STEAM subcommittee meetings where we've talked about Million Women Mentors, and some of you may have even signed up to participate during our statewide Galvanize program on December 7th at Goodwin College, where Laura hosted a Million Women Mentors booth. So we also announced the webinar again this past Tuesday at our full council meeting on women and girls. So no matter how you came to join us today, we appreciate your participation. Now, I'm sure many of us already know from firsthand experience the importance of mentorship, as statistics show that girls tend to lose interest in STEM subjects at around the 5th grade. It's particularly important to establish mentoring relationships in STEM fields early with young girls. So we are fortunate here in Connecticut to have some very active girl service organizations, legislative and administrative initiatives to support girls in STEAM subjects in school, and the Education and STEAM Subcommittee of the Council. And all of these have the purpose of increasing awareness and to access to STEAM opportunities for girls. We also have several Fortune 500 and other companies with STEM-based businesses, and of course companies with STEAM opportunities, even if their core business has a different base. So we're very excited to partner with the Council on Women and Girls Corporate Leadership Circle on a number of initiatives, and intend to discuss with them Million Women Mentors in more detail at our next circle gathering. While Sheree, Sheila, Laura, and I have a lot of great ideas on how we can work together to support the Million Women Mentors, we're very excited to create the state steering committee and get your input moving forward. So if you have any questions or ideas you'd like to share, please don't hesitate to contact Sheree, Laura, or me. Contact information will be made available to you at the end of today's webinar if you don't already have it. And I want to thank you all again for taking time out of your schedule to join us today. We are looking forward to working with each one of you. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. And I can definitely hear and see the vision that you have, and Connecticut's very lucky to have you and Governor Lamont in leadership. And I do want to give definitely a shout out to Lieutenant Governor Bethany Hall Long, I believe, who introduced you to Million Women Mentors through the last Lieutenant Governor event in Delaware. And know, as you mentioned, that there are many lieutenant governors that are involved with us, and having this leadership, not to politicize the movement, but to elevate it, is so important. And working on issues like this that are important, as you mentioned, to the economies of states is vital. And so
that's right. And it is, and I do want to stress that this is an initiative that is nonpartisan, and there are leaders of both parties, mainly women, but some very smart men who have joined us in this effort, because I think everyone sees the value and opportunity in it.
Very much so. Very much so. Right on point. And I mean, I think that is what it is. And I agree, today is a little bit about sharing a little bit about what the movement has been about, where we're heading, but then really for you all as a group and those that are on the phone, for you all to figure out how do you work together to continue the work in Connecticut and connect to really a lot of things that are already going on. So at this time, I'm going to take a couple of minutes to just run through, a little bit of the nuts and bolts of Million Women Mentors, so you can learn a little bit about, how the movement is structured, some of the resources that we have available to those that want to get involved. Mentoring programs really benefit more than just the mentees. A lot of times we think it's just the mentee that's benefiting, but quite frankly, mentors, states, and as we mentioned, economies and organizations benefit from this as well. Of course, the girls or the women that have mentors are tremendously benefited, as they are 2.5 times more likely to be confident in their ability to succeed. But what's interesting, a study from Wharton showed that employees who volunteer at their companies and in their community are twice as likely to be more engaged in work, and even 6 times more likely to be promoted. Who doesn't want to hear that? And 23% more likely to get a raise. So, some great data that shows that this is a win-win situation for those that get involved. As I mentioned earlier, Governor Kim Reynolds of Iowa, she has been our national honorary chair for the last 5 years, and she understands that this has been a vital piece of statewide strategy to encourage more girls and women to go into STEM. As we mentioned, MWM Mentors is really more of a movement than a prescriptive sort of program, so to speak, but designed to spark the interest and confidence of women and girls to pursue those great STEM and STEAM careers in leadership opportunities as well, and using mentoring as a piece to actually encourage them to do this. There are many different ways to get involved. We are very, very fortunate to have tremendous, great national sponsors who fund the movement. So there's no charge to anyone on the phone here to participate. We have great companies. I think some of them are on the phone today. PepsiCo and Tata Consultancy, which are from the Northeast, as well as BP and many other companies are on our website that you can see, who have been vital in helping to support the movement as we have built it the last few years. When we look at MWM Mentors and we talk about mentoring, obviously most people are familiar with the normal face-to-face mentoring. But, with technology and other things as that has grown, online mentoring and other forms of connection have really elevated themselves. As I mentioned earlier, I'm actually an engineer as well, and my mentee and we have had a mentoring relationship for 6 years, and most of our mentoring is done over text. That's just the way the kids roll these days. And so, thinking about ways to engage and stay connected to your mentor and your mentee are vital in keeping and sustaining the growth. Paid internships and apprenticeships are also very important, because a lot of times those are not frequently given to women and girls. My own daughter works in Chicago, and her company last summer did a mentoring and an internship program that they solely hired only women and girls into. So that was a really great way to sort of put a stake in the sand and say women in STEM are very important to us. And then lastly, thinking about sponsorship. A lot of times, advocating for a young woman in her career is one way that you can continue to support and elevate them. So just giving you some ideas of ways that you can use mentoring outside of just your typical one-to-one mentoring. MWM Mentors, we count everything that is kind of outside what I would say a regular school experience. We don't count math class at school, but we are counting things like encouraging more girls to do after-school camps in STEM or STEAM and other events of that nature, whether it be through Science Olympiad or First Robotics or some of those other great types of programs that are available in schools. Who's involved? It's everybody and anybody that wants to be, but certainly individuals who are looking for mentoring opportunities, companies who are looking for opportunities to encourage more women and girls to be in STEM within their company, or also wanting to get involved with their community by offering mentors. Now, even though we're called MWM Mentors, our mentors can be women or men. We need all hands on deck to move the needle on getting more girls in STEM. And so we really encourage and have some, as the Lieutenant Governor very nicely put, some very smart men that understand this is of value to them too. And then, of course, our state and regional organizers. Those of you that are on the phone, Lieutenant Governor and others, who really have helped us to elevate the movement, coordinate efforts, and build the movements within the different states. We have four big sort of core components of MWM Mentors. Our national reach, which has been a multi-year commitment of thousands of volunteers across our 46 states, many governors and lieutenant governors, as I mentioned, and hundreds of partner organizations, nonprofits, and others who have engaged with us. It's also been the desire to create communication and the ability to amplify the work that's going on. So that has been through our newsletter and other things that we have. For those of you that want to get involved more just in sort of wanting to learn more about what we're doing after today's call, you just go to MWMWomenMentors.com and sign up for our newsletter so you can get those regular communications that we send out once a month to show you what's going on with the movement. And thirdly, you know, working with companies throughout the country to really help them connect their employees to mentees through national, really sort of organizations, including those that are linked to Mentor, which is the National Mentoring Partnership, who is our partner that hand curates mentoring opportunities. We have the ability, if there's a certain area of the country or state that you want to know what those mentoring opportunities are, you can actually send those to us and we can actually work with Mentor to make sure they even focus more heavily on that particular part of the state. And then sustainability. You know, we started this movement 5 years ago, and through our efforts in counting the different work that was going on, we reached 1 million completed mentoring relationships in terms of what the movement was advocating for within a couple of years. We've continued to grow and continue to build those pledges out there. And pledges are really, you know, allowing people to say, I'm pledging to be involved in this movement, to be mentors, and to also work with companies to find out what they might be willing to do in terms of the movement. We've been very fortunate through Tata Consultancy to have a portal that's designed to be sort of a central point for where information is about our movement. We have resources there. We have lots of different types of things that allow us to connect you with mentoring opportunities, but then also record and amplify the mentoring that's occurring. A lot of people are already doing mentoring things, so we're not trying to duplicate or make you do a lot more work. So if your organization or your company is already doing some mentoring work, we're able to put that in through something we call Be Counted that lets you see what is going on in the state. Now, what's great is that, you know, MWM Mentors are state efforts. We have over 40 states that have been involved with us, and we've been very fortunate to get, as I mentioned earlier, a sample of MWM Mentors honorary chairs. These have been women and men who have stepped up to the table to say they want to help lead within their state. This is, as the Lieutenant Governor said, it is a nonpartisan type movement, but we use the amplification and the role that these lieutenant governors and governors play in their state to amplify the message, to make sure that they can talk about the importance of women and girls to their economy. And every fall, we hold a fantastic summit, national summit, in DC that allows us to come together as a nation and as state leaders to talk about the movement and things that have gone on. And we always feature a panel of government leaders. We're hoping that your lieutenant governor next year will be able to join us for this event. I know her schedule didn't let her this year, but we've had some great lieutenant governors and other state leaders come and talk about the importance of MWM Mentors to their state and to their economy. Additionally, you know, we encourage people to have events within their state. Now, you already are really lucky that you have an infrastructure with your Council of Women and Girls through your governor's office. So you already probably will have some events that will be focused on women and girls in STEM. And one of the things that we encourage people to do is just connect the MWM Mentors brand, if you want to call it, or name and movement to the different types of events that you have within your state. Last year alone, we counted over 150 events across the entire country that had some kind of presence of MWM Mentors. Additionally, as I mentioned, you know, we have a tremendous national communication team. And last year, we only had 15 days nationally that Million Women Mentors was not in the media or social media frameworks. And so really we're helping to shape some of the conversation. So it's very important that we continue to find ways to connect Million Women Mentors to the different types of events that are focused on growing more women and girls in STEM. So you can think about the different types of things that are going on in your companies and your organizations to actually see how do you connect Million Women Mentors to that work. Every year, we provide the nation with an annual State of the States report. This allows us on a single page to communicate the events, the different types of things that have gone on within each of our states that are active with us. Additionally, we provide on this State of the States report, each page, the correct contact person for each of the states. So if you know someone in another state or you are in another state and you want to be connected to the Million Mentors movement, it is very simple to do this. This is available at millionmentors.com under our resources tab. And, you know, today we don't really have enough time to go to the website, but the website does have other resources, including how to be a great mentor and many other things beyond our State of the State report. This last year, we were able, as we were confirmed the Lieutenant Governor's participation prior to the summit, to actually include a page for Connecticut in our national annual State of the States. This next year, I know we're going to have a lot of great information and activities and things that you guys are doing. So one of the things we want to remind you is as you are doing things related to women and girls in STEM, please take pictures. We have these great powerful phones now that we can actually take a picture anytime, and you can email them to states@millionwomenmentors.com or to Cherie or Laura as well, so that we can make sure we catalog the great activities that go on in the state of Connecticut during this next year. Now let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the mentoring opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, we have partnered with Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. This allows us to activate on our strategy to connect mentors with girl and women serving organizations that are available through our database and through the curated mentoring opportunities that Mentor works. Now, one thing to caution you about is we do not connect mentors directly with individual girls online. For obvious reasons, including safety and background check concerns, we work with local organizations in each state so that they are responsible for the background checks and the other criteria that are needed in order to vet the mentors before they are able to connect them to girls. Additionally, through our portal, we also want you, as I mentioned earlier, to report the results of other mentoring efforts that are going on. So all the mentoring does not have to be curated or connected through our portal. If you go to the Million Mentors website and you see a button called Be Counted, that's where you can easily put in a few lines a little bit about mentoring that has gone on, that you have been involved in, and other programs involving girls and women that we are then able to roll up and count into the Connecticut report as well as our national report. We provide then reporting against the pledges and other accountability that it really encourages companies to meet higher goals. I love to tell the story about, you know, companies like BP and Walmart and others that we've been working with. When we started, you know, they virtually had no mentoring programs going on in their companies. But after really meeting us and working with Million Women Mentors, these organizations were able to start mentoring efforts within their own companies. And so that has been very exciting. And if you go to our website, and certainly we'll provide this a link in our follow-up to this webinar today, you will actually see a lot of our national companies that some of them may have facilities within your state. Now, how does the process work for you as an individual? As I mentioned earlier, after this webinar, you can go to our website and register for an account on millionmentors.com. That will give you the opportunity to either register as an individual register as an organization as a mentee serving organization or an organization that actually has mentors. So you can pick which one best fits you. Certainly, if you're an individual, you can just do as an individual. That will then give you an opportunity to find a mentoring opportunity on our website and then engage with the opportunity, as I mentioned earlier, that a lot of that is done offline because we, again, want you to work with the organization that has the mentoring opportunity. Then we encourage you, obviously, to go do the mentoring or participate in the program and then come back to our site to report the mentoring that has been completed. This allows us to continue to build and grow mentoring across the country. You know, one thing I love about our movement is I always say we always do not understand the full ramifications of the things that we have done. Many of you on this potential steering committee may or may not know each other. And as you meet and become acquainted, we see a lot of organizations then form relationships outside of Million Women Mentors that they may never have met. And they got to meet because of Million Women Mentors. And there are lots of different things where we help companies think intentionally about how they're placing women in roles in their company because we have elevated that conversation. Lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Be Counted. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we are really about numbers, as we love those types of things when we're looking at, you know, movements. And so, you know, we've been really fortunate. Just in October, we rolled over about 1.7 million counted relationships that have been counted by the Million Mentors movement. And so that has included organizations like IREX and TATA and Science Olympiad and many, many, many others who have looked in their programs to see what are they doing in terms of women and girls in STEM, and then reporting back to us in bulk that we're able to count that. So that's very exciting, and many of you may have that as well. And additionally, we have over 2.3 million, much and growing very rapidly, pledges. This means that a company or organization said, look, in the next year, we are going to be working with approximately 500 or 5,000 girls or women. And so that gives us the opportunity, again, to set those pledges in place and then go back at toward the end of the year and count them and figure out if we are able to elevate and continue moving the needle forward and getting more girls and women in STEM. Now, I know I have given you a lot of information. We are going to have a recording of this webinar available following this call with the follow-up and these slides. So please feel like you do not have to take notes, because I should have said that at the beginning, but you will know that. I will say for Connecticut, we've had some amazing calls. First off, it started with the Lieutenant Governor herself calling me to express her interest, and I cannot thank her enough. And then it was followed up by connecting me with Cherie and Laura as well in the state of Connecticut. And they have really taken charge of this movement for Connecticut. And so at this point, I wanted to turn it over to them to let them try to explain a little bit about what are some of their goals for Million Women Mentors. So I believe starting first will be Cherie. We'll talk about some of their vision and their ideas for the next steps for Connecticut. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Sheila. And I just have to say, for all those who have joined us today with interest in Million Women Mentors generally, or particularly interest in being part of the steering committee, we are very fortunate in this state to have very committed and passionate leadership. I know Sheila has said that multiple times already, but I just want to reinforce that when I first met Lieutenant Governor Susan Bysiewicz, it's when we were discussing me coming on board as her general counsel. In our very first meeting, I was taken back and very pleasantly surprised by how focused and energetic she was on any number of issues that she had, that she wanted to address here in the state and things that she wanted to take on and do. But there was a particular passion in her voice, and there always is, when she talks about women and girls in particular. And I can promise you that she chairs the Council on Women and Girls with a lot of energy and a lot of exuberance. And she is very committed to making sure that we're making moves. So it's been a pleasure to work with her. We often hear people joke and ask how it is that the two of us can both have the same amount of energy in the same space, but we somehow managed to spread that energy around. Likewise, though, when we were first connected with Sheila, I had a wonderful conversation with Sheila about Million Women Mentors, and it just made me even more excited that this was one of the things that the state was taking on. And by sheer coincidence, I had spoken to Laura Williams when she expressed interest in being a part of the steering committee for the Governor's Council on Women and Girls. And, you know, I spoke to a few people about their interest in the council, but Laura and I really had, I think, like a 30-minute or plus conversation where we were just bouncing off and going back and forth. And it was really exciting to hear her interest as well. So when I learned that she was already even connected to Million Women Mentors, it was just really sort of a perfect marriage of all the people that really wanted to get involved. So I'm very pleased that as the Lieutenant Governor's General Counsel, I also get to be involved in some of these issues that really touch near and dear to my heart, and that we really get to do things that are important to the state socially, but of course also economically. And so it's been a real pleasure. So thank you, Sheila. So just to talk a little bit about the vision for the state, you know, we've talked about the fact that we have a subcommittee on education and STEAM. The really good piece of that is that that subcommittee is already connected to 30+ organizations that help support the subcommittee itself in its efforts to advance women and girls in the STEAM field. So just for clarity, our Council on Women and Girls is actually comprised of the governor's and lieutenant governor's cabinet, which is the 27 state agency heads, the commissioners that run our 27 agencies. It also includes 4 legislators, again, bipartisan, one from the minority party in the House, one from the minority party in the Senate, and then the majority and majority party in both the House and the Senate as well. So one from each of the 4 major caucuses, including our minority parties. And then also included on the council are the 5, all the other constitutional officers. So we have representation from the Secretary of the State, the Office of the State Treasurer, the Office of the State Comptroller, and the Office of the Attorney General. So with the council being made up the way that it is, it gives us the opportunity to really cross over all state functions to really work together to support the 4 subcommittees of the council, which represent its priority. Because we receive so much interest from different people in the community to really support and work with the council, we have over 100 members of our public, whether it's from advocacy groups, educational institutions, some groups that push for certain causes throughout the state, health organizations, just a wide variety that have all joined the council steering committee. Given that we had so many, we wanted to keep it productive, and we split them up to each be assigned to sort of support one of the 4 subcommittees of the council. So the Education and STEAM subcommittee alone has over 30 steering committee members that help support the education and STEAM efforts. One of the things that Laura and I will do is we'll sort of compare the organizations that are already part of the steering committee for education and STEAM of the subcommittee of the council, and the individuals who have expressed interest in supporting Million Women Mentors specifically. We'll see what kind of crossover we have, and it may make sense for us to hold our periodic meetings as sort of a segment of our education and STEAM subcommittees, or it may make sense not to, but that's one of the things that Laura and I will take a look at once we have a sense of who all wants to be on the Million Women Mentors specific steering committee. So as we go into what sort of our function is, Lieutenant Governor Bythwith and Sheila have already referenced the fact that we already do have a pretty good structure set up, and we do have a lot of organizations that are already involved in some of these efforts to some degree. So our first step really is to get a baseline sense of what we already have going on. So we really want to see what efforts already exist and where they exist throughout the state. One of the things that we've learned a lot through council efforts, as well as some legislative proposals, is that we sort of have pockets in the state where there's a lot more STEAM activity than in other pockets of the state. So there's some school districts and some schools that may have a pretty robust coding challenge. Some even have girl coding organization groups in their schools, but then there's some schools that are absent completely from it. So we're trying to get a sense of what kind of efforts we already have in the state and where those efforts are, so that we can really make sure that we can do a really comprehensive look at what STEAM is across the state of Connecticut, where it's already pretty prevalent, where it's absent at all, where we can connect it to, and things of that nature. So doing the geographical assessment as well as the actual number of people and crossover to our council subcommittee assessment is a really good baseline right now for us to understand the status of the STEAM mentoring. And thank you so much. One of the great advantages that we gained from Million Women Mentors, when our website was first prepared for the Connecticut state-specific site, I looked at the page and we already had all these partners, and I said, well, how did we get so many already? And we learned that because, of course, all of these organizations had already been involved to some degree, Million Women Mentors had already been tracking state efforts in Connecticut before we had even completely signed on as a Million Women Mentor state with the Lieutenant Governor as the honorary chair. So it's really good that we can gather some information from the Million Women Mentor resources already, and we're certainly looking to adding more information into that. So definitely at the conclusion of this call, and you'll probably get a follow-up from Laura after she and I have had a chance to follow up, but we will want to know who's actually interested in being a steering committee member, what your time commitment can be. We certainly anticipate periodic meetings, and again, we could bounce off the Council on Women and Girls to do that or not. We will sort of see what makes sense. But the goal that we have and what we really want to make sure we're encouraging is your input on not only what we can do, like ideas on how we can actually get the word out about Million Women Mentors, but really encourage women in organizations who are in the STEM field to step up and be mentors, as well as connecting us to those girl groups that may not already be connected to STEM opportunities. Another thing that we'll certainly want our steering committee members to do is to not only recruit the mentors and the mentees, but to really help us come up with really good programming ideas. Again, we have some things that are already happening, but we are a very innovative and excitable group, and I'm sure we can come up with many, many more, and we want to make sure we attach the Million Women Mentoring brand onto things that already exist and are relevant, but also onto new things that we are able to come up with and say, look at what our steering committee did. So we're very excited to put all of you forward and to introduce the world to all of you as well. And once we settle on who the steering committee members are, we will certainly publicize that on the website, and we can talk about other ways to publicize that around the state, and certainly help us to fill in the geographical pockets as well as the girl group and mentoring pockets as best as you can. So hopefully that gives sort of an overview about what we expect in moving this initiative forward. And I'm going to now go ahead and turn it over to Laura Williams to give you a little bit more about how to contact us to specifically get involved.
Hi, thank you so much, Sherry, for your wonderful overview. And thank you again to Lieutenant Governor Susan Beisowitz for your tremendous leadership in this area. And also to you, Sheila, to really bring forward the Million Women Mentors effort to the state of Connecticut. My email address is at the bottom of this sheet, laurawilliams@hsb.com. That's probably the quickest and easiest way to get in touch with me. As Sherry mentioned, there are several ways that you can get involved. And also Sheila did a great overview of the program. You know, if you are on the call and have already thought about being a mentor, you can certainly sign up individually. And I love how easy the portal is to use. So once you're able to sign up, you know, it'll simply ask you for your zip code and start to connect you to the other organizations that are already loaded. She'll also mention that we'd like to know from your own organizations if you're involved in an organization or a leader of an organization, or you know that an organization might be a really great fit for a mentoring opportunity. We also want to know that. So please reach out to me and let me know so I can work with Sheila to have those mentoring opportunities loaded into the system. We really want to get the infrastructure up and going so that we can truly do a great baseline, as Sherry mentioned, just organizations or companies even. I know we have some individuals from PepsiCo on the call. Some of our organizations, our Fortune 500s, have large women's networks and organizations, employee resource groups and engagement organizations where you yourselves may already have a mentoring program and it can be an internal mentoring program or perhaps an external mentoring program, even reverse mentoring. All are welcome, and men are not excluded. And I can't stress that enough, that in this day and age, I think, we have seen tremendous strides be made of encouraging the growth of all of our individual contributors, including mentors themselves and mentees. But really, it's a growth in terms of the mentor's development of confidence. So whether you're a man or a woman, whether you have a little bit of experience in a STEAM career or a lot, we really need the engagement of everyone to really be a helping hand of helping bring companies that have these types of mentoring opportunities and organizations to the forefront. And we really value your ideas. So there are several ways that you can be involved, whether it's becoming a mentor, raising a hand to be a steering committee member. On our steering committee, I think you saw, as Sheila had the pages up, of the other couple of states, Minnesota, I believe it was, and maybe Indiana. It can range between 5 or 10 steering committee members. And I know that we would like to make sure that we have as large or distributed geographic reach across the state. So some of you may be located or work at companies in Southwest Connecticut or in the central area of the state, even the Quiet Corner, or in certain industries. And so we really value having as much diversity as we can, and certainly want folks that have background or working with education organizations or volunteer organizations to really raise a hand and help us just put the word out. Again, we'll help you assess the time commitment, but what's really most important is just the being a part of this and the communication, really to connect us to opportunities, to build mentoring opportunities, and also that connection that we would have to the state subcommittee of education and STEAM. So there's a multitude of ways that you can be involved. Number one of which is just a thank you to you all for having the passion and the insight enough to know that this is really going to make a difference in our state, in our communities, and certainly for our daughters and sisters, as all of us really want to make sure that we extend a hand and just pay forward all of the wonderful opportunities from the folks that have come before us and had the wisdom and insight really to bring together such a wonderful mentoring opportunity. If you could go to the very last slide or the next slide. So these are our contact info. Certainly Sherry's email address is on here, and mine is as well. So if you have any questions, we've also got Sheila and Alex's email addresses as well, just for anything that we may have missed as we've gone through this. Again, thank you all so very much for your participation, and I look forward to hearing back from some of you very soon.
Great, thank you, Laura. And Cherie, did the Lieutenant Governor have to leave?
Yes, so Sheila and Laura and Cherie and all joining, thank you so much. We are so excited about this initiative and can't wait to be working with all of you.
Yes, and I want to take a minute to thank each and every person that did join today, as everyone else has as well. And thank you, Lieutenant Governor Bicewicz, for your tremendous passion and leadership. I know Connecticut is going to be one of those states we're going to continue to talk about. Thank you, Cherie and Laura, as well, for your leadership. And also, I think, one thing is we're open to ideas. So if there are other ideas of things that you've heard today that might spawn, or other organizations that you want involved, we hope that when you receive the follow-up email that will contain a recording to this webinar, you will forward it to others so that we can get those others in your state engaged as well. And we appreciate so much your time this afternoon. It's great Friday for everyone. And as we mentioned, here are the contact information. Our follow-up email will be coming out next week, where we can ask you a little bit about how you might like to be involved. And then I know Cherie and Laura will work to schedule possibly either a call or a meeting to really connect with those that are interested in continuing to work at this in many different ways. Again, I remind people, this is a volunteer movement. So there's no judgment. Most of the time we have a lot of type A personalities that judge themselves very harshly on how they participate. But I want to remind you, anything you do is more than nothing. So never feel bad about, you know, what you can do for this movement or for the need for moving more girls and women in STEM, because just the fact that you've spent the time with us this afternoon shows us your tremendous interest in this. So I want to thank again, Lieutenant Governor, for your tremendous time and your leadership, Cherie and Laura as well. And if you do have any questions, do we have a chat box on this? I didn't actually see.
No.
Okay, so there is an opportunity if you have some questions and you wanted to put them in the chat box. We'll make sure those are answered in the follow-up. And otherwise, you can email Cherie, Laura, or myself with any questions or follow-up thoughts that you have. And otherwise, Lieutenant Governor, if you'd like to say goodbye, and we'll be done.
Well, thanks everybody. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful Martin Luther King weekend.
Thank you.